On top of that, the third E stands for earmarks of authenticity. In other words, I looked at corroborative evidence that indicates a high likelihood that these documents are accurate. First, I studied archaeology, and I found that those facts in the New Testament that can be tested by archaeology time after time after time have been confirmed by archaeologists. In fact, there have been many instances where archaeologists would look at Luke and say, well, Luke's got things messed up. Luke's wrong about these references. We know that from archaeology, and we can't trust him. And then time after time, we find out that it was Luke who was right and the archaeologists who had been wrong. I'll give you an example involving Christmas. Luke describes the census that brought Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem. It says it was conducted when Quirinius was governing Syria and during the reign of Herod the Great. Now, historians used to look at that and say, well, see, Luke doesn't know what he's talking about, because everybody knows Herod died in 4 BC, and Quirinius didn't begin ruling Syria until 10 years later. So their reigns didn't overlap, as Luke said. He's wrong. You can't trust what he said. But a few years ago, an eminent archaeologist by the name of Dr. Jerry Vardaman found a coin with what archaeologists call micrographic letters, which simply means very tiny writing, that proved that Quirinius was proconsul of Syria from 11 BC until after the death of Herod. In other words, there were either 2 Quiriniuses, it's a fairly common name, so that's a possibility, or Quirinius governed Syria at 2 separate times. But the point is, Luke was right. And that archaeological discovery showed us once more how careful he was as an historian. In fact, both liberal and conservative historians both will tell you that Luke was very careful and very accurate about what it is that he recorded. Australian archaeologist Clifford Wilson said, "Those who know the facts now recognize that the New Testament must be accepted as a remarkably accurate source book." The second earmark of authenticity for the New Testament is that it contains all kinds of embarrassing material about the disciples. Things like their unbelief and their cowardice and their grandiosity and even their stupidity. And then there are these hard-to-explain sayings of Jesus that would have been embarrassing to his culture. Things like his attitudes toward sinners and toward women and toward legalism and his displays of anger. And here's the point. If the writers of the New Testament were inclined to manipulate or whitewash the record, surely they would have edited out this embarrassing material. But the material is in the Bible, which is simply more evidence of their desire to be complete and to be accurate, even if their own image was tarnished in the process. Third, I looked at writings outside the Bible to see if they contradict or they confirm what the New Testament tells us. In his book, The Historical Jesus, a friend of mine, Dr. Gary Habermas, documents 39 ancient sources for the life of Jesus from outside the Bible, including 17 non-Christian sources, which together report over 100 facts about the life, teachings, miracle, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And so key aspects of the New Testament are corroborated by writings independent of the Bible. Friends, when I hold the New Testament of the Bible, I am holding a reliable record about Jesus Christ and about the early church. And that's just not my opinion. British scholar R.T. France said, "We have good reasons to treat the gospel seriously as a source of information on the life and teachings of Jesus, and thus on the historical origins of Christianity." In fact, even the critical German scholar Peter Stuhlmacher told Time magazine recently, "The biblical texts as they now stand are the best hypothesis we have until now to explain what really happened." In other words, who was really in that manger on the first Christmas. So this first question, do we have reliable records about Jesus, is answered with the resounding yes. Yes, we do.